In this video, we are going to learn about not in keyword. Just like in keyword, not in keyword helps in searching values. The only difference is that not in keywords gives the list of values except the ones which are mentioned after the keyword. Okay, so let's take an example. We have a table which is user activity of a search engine. This table contains information about the user ID, their query, what pages are clicked, etc. This has 4 rows and 6 columns. Now, I want to get the rows where user ID are not 1 or 2. Just by looking at this, you can tell that which row would not be part of your output, right? Just by looking at this, we can see that the row which will come in our output would be with user ID 3, right? This is how our output table would look like. Now we also need to see how we can achieve with SQL. This is how the output table will come, right? So now think about it. I believe every one of you would have figured out how to write this query, but still give a pause and think about it, how we would be able to write this query. A hint for you all, it would be very similar to in syntax. So here's the code. If you look at the syntax, you will see that first we are selecting all the columns from user activity, that is select star from user activity. According to the problem, we need to only consider the user ID which are not 1 or 2. So apart from user ID 1 or 2, all the user ID should be considered. So we write the code like this, which is select star from user activity where to have the filtering criteria. The column on which we have to filter is user ID. So where user ID not in. We don't want 1 and 2. So what is the list? That is 1, comma 2. A complete query is select star from user activity where user ID not in 1, comma 2. What it will give you? It will give you all the rows which are apart from 1 or 2 user ID. In our example, the output will only be single row as we have only one user output row with user ID 3, which is not 1 or 2. Great. So we have learned how to write this query. So let's go to Metabase. You have the credentials to log into Metabase. Let's write this query. Let's copy paste this complete query over here. But before that, we will see the user activity data. Let's execute it. And yes, we have same data with 4 rows, 6 columns, which gives you the information about user ID, query details, which is query ID and what is the query, and details about the page and the engagement. Great. Now, let's go to a problem, the actual problem, what we are trying to solve. What is that? We want user activity details, user ID other than 1 or 2. So we don't want information about these two users which have user ID 1 or 2. We just want user ID apart from 1 and 2. So let's see how we will write this. Select star. This will help you in selecting all the columns. Now we have to mention which table data is coming from. That is from user activity. Next, what we have is we have to filter the data. Filter on what is the keyword, where, on which column, based on which column we have to filter. That is user ID column. Okay. Not in. That's the condition, right? Not in. And which IDs it should not be? It should not be 1 or 2. So let's execute this. We got 1 row as the output, just same as expected as we have seen few minutes back. It is with user ID 3. So if you look at the syntax, you will see that first of all, we are selecting all the columns from the user activity, then giving a condition with where clause. In the condition, we are using the keyword not in, so that we are getting all the rows of user ID based on user ID, which is apart from 1 and 2, right? We are using the keyword not in over here, and which two user IDs we don't want, that we have to pass in the list over here, that is 1, comma 2. Okay. So great, we are able to achieve this. Now let's move forward, and we would be working on our favorite data set, that is employees detail. What we are trying to achieve over here is, let's say the problem statement is employee details for employees working in department other than sports, toys, games. Apart from these department, I want employee details of all the employees who are working in any other department apart from these three. So how we will write this? Which is done through where clause. So where, which column we have to filter the details on? Department column. Not in, because it is other than, not in. And I have the list. What does the list say? It is sports. I don't want sports as the department. If you guys remember, we had 27 distinct departments, right? 27 unique departments we were having in this data set. And out of that, we want details of all the other departments, all the other employees working in other department apart from sports, toys, and games. So what we have written is select star from employees detail where department not in sports, toys, games. Let's execute, and we are getting details of all the employees apart from the employees working in toys, sports, and games. If you scroll through this, you can see that we don't have anywhere games, sports, or toys mentioned as the department. So awesome. We have learned how to query using not in. So here's the syntax. First, we are selecting the columns we want to get. This is a table from where we retrieve the data. At the end, we have the where clause. The line means print the rows of the column where the values are not value 1 or value 2 or so on. Now let us look at a different usage of not in keyword. Now, apart from the user activity of a search engine, we also have a table called user, which has the user ID, language, and user's country as well as the city information. Now, from the user activity table, I want to find the user activity data of users not from India. Remember, not from India. Okay. First is the user table. See who lives in India and omit this out. We won't be considering this. So we are omitting this user who is staying in India. After omitting the row with country India, we are left with these two rows with this user ID 1 and 2 for US and UK. Now, let us see in the user activity table who's having the user ID 1 and 2. So, that's it. This will be our output. That is, first three rows are the ones for which we are having user ID apart from user ID 3. So, I have highlighted the output rows in blue. Now, let's write the SQL code to accomplish the same. Similar to in keyword, here also we would be using the subquery. At the starting, we are having different query, and inside bracket, we have a different query as well. This query inside is giving me the user ID where the user country does not start with I. Okay, where the user country starts with I, and then we will be using it that it does not. I'm not picking up those, right? So, first of all, I want to filter that who are the users or which is the user ID whose country starts with I, right? So, it is like I percentage the wildcard. Then the output of this query is taken by the starting query or the outside query that you have. So first of all, we got the user ID from based on the country from user table, that which is the user ID which is from country starting with I. We omit this, and how we would be omitting this, that is by using not in, right? So we would be using not in. It won't consider this user ID which is being generated or which is coming as the output from the subquery. Okay. So how we have written this, select star from user activity where user ID not in, and the inner query or the subquery is select user ID from the user where user country like I percentage. Great. So let's execute the same on Metabase. What we want over here, this is what we are looking for, correct? So let us find the information about the activities of the users who are from India. So let's write that query. How we will write the query? Similar to in keyword, we need to do this thing, right? How we have written the previous query also. You guys have already gone through that. So let's see. So select star will give us all the columns. Until this point, if we just run, it will give us all the rows as well. Complete data we'll see. But we don't want complete data. We need to filter it out. How we need to filter it out? Where user ID not in is the user ID, user is not from India. So not in, and then your subquery comes. What will subquery help you with? It will help you in getting the user ID which are from India so that I don't consider them, right? User country like, and it should start with I, right? This is what we are trying to achieve. Let's execute it first. And we are having a issue over here. This is the table name that is causing the issue. Let's see. So it is user. Okay. So done. We got this. We got 4 rows over here. 3 rows, sorry, over here. Why we are getting 3 rows? We are getting 3 rows because we have filtered out the data. In user activity table, we were having 4 rows and 6 columns. But now we have filtered the data. And what condition we have filtered? We want only user IDs which are apart from people living in India, right? People, user ID of people living in India. So to find out who are the ones who are living in India, we executed this piece of the query. This is the inner query or the subquery. System will execute the complete query together, but this is how it works. First, it will execute this piece of the query. Select user ID from user, where user country like I percentage. So it is identifying that which is the user ID where user is from India. We got the user ID. Then I don't want to consider that user ID. Okay. So what we did is select star from user activity where user ID not in. It will take up that detail and it will not consider that and give you the output. If you see over here in any of the subqueries, whatever we are mentioning in where clause, similar thing is mentioned, similar column is there in the select statement of my inner query or the subquery as well. If I write select star over here in the subquery, it would be a mistake. It won't be able to match it because I want one column as the output from my subquery to match the result of that with my outer query. So great, we got the output and only user ID 1 and 2 are considered over here. Let's proceed further. And now, as we have seen before also, what is the requirement? We want to get the employees detail which are not from Quebec region. Okay. So as of now, we would be considering 2 tables, which is employee detail and regions table. We want to find out who are not from region Quebec, right? So before that, let's look at the columns that what are there and how our details look in both the tables. So for employees table, if I have to look at is select star, selecting all the columns from. I know you guys are pretty much familiar with these tables, but let's see. Okay. So we got the details over here, right? 1,000 rows. This is your employee table, which you are quite familiar with. But if you see over here, I don't have anything mentioned as region. It is region ID, right? So I am saying I don't want employee details from region Quebec. How to get that it is not region Quebec? Of course, I need to match region ID with region. It is not part of employee details table. It is part of regions table. So select star from and let's execute this. See, region ID, region and country. There are 7 different regions that you have. We have the region ID and region for that. Now, what is the task that we have at hand? We have, this is cubic is the name of the region. If you look at this table, cubic region means region ID 6. So how we will write this thing is select star from employees detail. This is our outer query where where region ID, because I just have the region ID in employees table, right? Where region ID not in, it is not in that list. I can get multiple regions with the same, with different region IDs for the same region, that is cubic, right? So that's why on the safe side, I am writing not in. Select this inner query will help me get the details of all those region IDs which belong to region cubic. So select region ID from regions where region like. Remember the same query we have written in a prior also while we are going to the in keyword. Just the difference was that we have used in keyword. At that time, we wanted the employee details who belong to cubic. Over here, I don't want the employee details who belong to cubic. So what is this? This is the inner query which gives you the region ID for region starting with the name Q, that is cubic region, and that region ID would be used over here to filter the data to not have the details of the employees which belong to the same region ID. So let's execute this. And we got the result. If you see, we know only it is region ID, right? And region ID 6 means that it is cubic, right? But over here, what we are getting? We are getting region ID 6 also. So it means that it is not able to take this correctly. Can you point out what's the error? Small error that we have done in this query. Okay, I believe most of you would have identified what we are doing is where region like Q. I have not given the wildcard. There is no region name as Q. The region name is starting with Q. So if I give a percentage over here, it becomes anything which starts with Q. If I'm not giving percentage, it means it will take the exact match. It will try to find the exact match. An exact match doesn't exist. So let's execute the query. And this time, if you see, then region 6 is not part of the output, right? So these are very small things that we generally make mistake, and we keep on thinking, what's the error? But this is how we should look at it, that what is the error. They're very minute things we should be very vigilant about. So great, let's revise this query quickly, understand it. Select star from employees detail where region ID not in. This query needs the list of region IDs which are not having the region name as cubic. So how to get that list? I'm running a sub query which says select region ID from regions where region like Q and then wildcard, that is percentage. It is giving me all the region IDs which belong to cubic region, and it is being filtered in the outer query to not include it in the output. Okay. So now since we are done with this, let's have a overview that how the syntax look for not in. This is the syntax too. This is the subquery. The output of the subquery is taken by the top part, this part that is highlighted over here, or the outer query, which works similarly like syntax 1. Okay. So this is all that we have for not in.